Hi everyone. So in this video, Lavanya is going to talk about the GRE preparation, the English language requirement preparation for TOEFL and IELTS, and also she will be talking in detail about financial aid and various scholarships which are available for Indian students. So if you have not seen the part 1 of this video, then I would request you to please go back, watch part 1 and then watch the part 2, then it's going to make more sense and you are going to get very detailed, authentic, and very honest information about admission to the foreign universities.
Yeah,
Yes, Lavanya, please tell our students what is the English language requirement and how to prepare for that.
right. Two kinds of colleges again here. So, few colleges do not require an English language test if you have studied your undergrad in English medium, which most of us actually do at the University of Delhi. So, for us, few colleges exempt us from writing the English language test, but especially public schools in US and Canada require you to write an English language test. So you can either write the IELTS or the TOEFL exam. So both of these essentially have four sections: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So largely the writing section is divided into two parts, wherein you just write. One is that they give you a data set or like a table and they asked you to write about it. And the second thing is a very generic question, open-ended question, which you have to answer. So mostly what we look at here is your grammar and your sentence formation. Then the second section is the speaking section. So the speaking section is also usually very generic. So for me, my speaking section largely went around what is my favorite social media to use and why I'm choosing that over the other platforms. That is what my speaking question was. So this goes around just about 10 to 15 minutes. And then the more difficult parts of this are the reading and listening. So reading is usually reading comprehension questions. So there are around four passages, 5 to 8 questions per passage, which we have to answer. And all of this happens in 1 hour. So at least reading comprehension is something we're used to. What we are not used to in this is the listening section. 30 minutes, and audio plays just once. Simultaneously, you're supposed to write your answers. So, this is the section which actually requires you to practice because there are two questions which there is a diagram. The person is speaking about the diagram, and you're supposed to write about it. You're supposed to answer the questions about it. So, that is where it gets a little tricky. But I think there are a lot of free resources one can use. So especially for IELTS, there is a website. If you just Google, that is probably the first or second link. Free IELTS mock tests. They have around 50 mock tests. I took around 5 of them, but I did the listening section for around 20 of them because that is where I felt that I needed a lot of practice. And that is where most of us do because we have not done that before. So I did these sections and I ended up scoring a 9 in my listening section out of 9 in the IELTS. Same goes for TOEFL as well. So there are a lot of free resources available. For the speaking, I would say that one should actually schedule a session with ETS or British Council. This costs around 500 rupees. It's in half an hour session. So they explain to you how the format of the listening section is, and then they actually take a mock interview for you and they give you feedback as to where you should actually improve or change things in your answer. So that actually helps a lot. So I did take one session from British Council for my IELTS exam, and that did come in very, very handy when I was giving my actual speaking.
Very nice. So you take me back to my classroom. I'm basically a teacher, and I always tell my
Oh,
students, listen, develop your listening
right.
skills because they help. Yes, right. Lavanya, so tell our students how to prepare for GRE exam.
Right. So, like based on course, actually, you write GRE or GMAT. The preparation for both of them is fairly
We
similar.
are talking in terms of economics.
Yeah, so few colleges accept the GMAT as well for economics course. I did give the GRE, I did not give the GMAT, but a few colleges accept GMAT as well, especially for applied economics courses, they accept both GRE and GMAT. As the standardized test. So, but anyways, the preparation is very, very similar for both of them. So it's three sections. So first there is the quantitative section. I'm including the data interpretation section here itself. Then there is the verbal section, and then there is the analytical writing assessment. So the exam starts off with the AWA. Here, the questions are a little more complicated than what the IELTS writing section entails. The second question is fairly similar. So first one is that you analyze an argument and you write around 500 to 1000 words about it. And the second one is that you analyze a situation as to what you would do in that situation, or do you think if there is something someone has done, is that right or not? Usually for this section, I think the free mock test which ETS provides once you register for the GRE exam will suffice, because one thing which a lot of people miss out in the AWA section is that there are 20 prompts for each of them, which are already there in the website, and they give only these prompts. They cannot change the prompts. So out of those 40 itself, you get two. And very easily online, you can get essays which were scored 5.5 or 6 out of 6 freely available. So if you just read through those, this section is pretty much done for you, as long as your grammar and your sentence formation is all right. The second and probably the part which most economic courses focus a lot on is the quantitative section. They require you to have at least 160 on 170 and 165 for some institutes. So for this section, I think go back to your 9th, 10th grade mathematics textbooks, do them very, very well, especially the geometry, number system part, which we ignore after coming to undergrad level because that is not something we keep in touch with. If it's something like mean, median, mode, basic statistics, we still are in touch with those. But geometry, specifically triangles, we tend to forget so many properties of those that it's very important to go back. And I think NCERT 9th and 10th class textbooks are a great starting point. Then ETS has official prep guides. PDFs are freely available online, or you can purchase the hard copy off of Amazon or their own website. It costs around 600 rupees. So this has section-wise explanations for every topic and practice questions. And then it has 4 full-length exams as well at the end, so that you can manage your time. So for the quant section, this book provides you a very good understanding of the concepts, but I don't think that there are enough questions for you to practice. There's just 3-4 after each topic. So to get that number of questions, there is a book called Manhattan Prep 5-pound book for GRE. So that has a lot of questions. So for every topic, they have around 40 to 50 questions, each and every subtopic as well. So that is where you can actually go and practice a lot, time yourselves and practice, because though the first section of the GRE exam, time is a secondary aspect because it's simple. If you do your first section well, the second section is usually very difficult. So there, the time crunch actually hits you that, okay, I have to do these things faster. So I think timing yourself and solving questions will help there. For the quant section, I think this will suffice. For the verbal section, there are 2 parts. So one is reading comprehension, which is just practice and practice. So the Manhattan Prep book has a lot of passages. The ETS official prep guide has a lot of passages. Then there are a lot of passages freely available as well. So one way around which I found was there are a lot of CAT resources as well available. So our common admission test, which people write for IIMs, etc. So their reading comprehension level and the GRE comprehension level is fairly similar. So if you can't find a lot of free GRE resources, you can still study from the CAT resources as well, especially for the reading comprehension section. Then there is another section wherein they have sentence equivalence and sentence completion. So this is just based on your vocabulary. If you know the meanings of the words in the choices, you can answer those. So there are a couple of lists which people follow. So one is called the Magoosh flashcards. So that has around 3 sets of flashcards. So this is an easier way to remember questions. So it pops the word up. So you think of the meaning and then you touch on it, it'll show you the meaning. So you'll know if you were right or wrong. I created my own dictionary of words when I prepared for GRE because that helped me a lot to go back and revise what I was studying. Since I had to learn about 1,500 words in 1 month, it meant that I have to go over them a lot of times. So I actually, whenever I used to read a word which I didn't know, I used to jot it down in a notebook with the meaning and with the sentence usage. This is where a lot of us go wrong. Though we know the meaning, we don't know how to use that in a sentence. So instead of directly just reading out of the dictionary, it's better if you use flashcards because those give you the sentence usage as well. So that is one thing. And then a more standard one, which a lot of people abroad use as well, it's called the Barron's List of 1100 words. So these 1100 words, around 500 of them pop up in the exam every single time. So around 400 to 500 pop up every single time. So that list is very important. So just do your vocabulary. Make sure you know the sentence uses for those. And whenever you read a word, look up synonyms as well. That also helps a lot, especially with the sentence equivalent. And that's how I went about the verbal section.
Great, Lavanya. I think you've shared a lot of details about it, and you've been very candid with it. I really appreciate your honesty.
Thank you.
Lavanya, tell the students if you took coaching for GRE preparation, and if it really helps, and how many hours of self studies did you put into? Just give a little insight into your
Right.
journey.
Right. I did not take a coaching. I studied by myself. But I did buy a lot of resources. So I actually bought the official prep guide because I'm someone who can't work with PDFs at all. So I bought the official prep guide. I bought the Manhattan prep book. And I used a lot of YouTube videos to guide me through the process. There are a lot of free resources available for on YouTube, especially for the writing section, for reading comprehension, how to approach those. So there were a couple of YouTube channels I used. It's called The Tested Tutor and Greg Matt. If people want to go and look them up, they're amazing people who have put in so much effort into teaching kids for free. So those were really, really good resources to go ahead. And I used to study around 4 hours every day. And that's because I had just a month to prepare. So for a few institutes this year, GRE was waived off due to the pandemic. So for few institutes, I did not put in my GRE score. Like Cornell and Vanderbilt did not require me to put in my GRE score. But then U Chicago and UCLA asked for it, and that is when I actually started preparing and gave my GRE exam. So I had just a month, so I had to put in around 4 hours. So usually a good amount of time to put in is 1 to 1.5 hour a day, and take 2 to 3 months. That will actually help you remember your words, especially very well. So that's how I did it.
Great, Lavanya. Now, another very important question. We have a lot of students who are very bright. They want to go to a foreign university, but most of them face the financial issues with them. They are not able to arrange finances. So, what is the possibility of getting scholarships, and what are the other options for the students to arrange financial aid?
Right. So scholarships again are of two kinds, right? So the first one is which the college gives you. So colleges can have two kinds of scholarships again. So one is need based and one is need blind. So for need based scholarships, a lot of us do qualify for need based scholarships in a lot of institutes. So if our annual incomes are less than $50,000, which in rupees will be, still a very big amount. So if that is the case, then you qualify for need based scholarships. But I will say that not a lot of colleges provide these to international students. Few do, few don't. But yes, so that doesn't require you to have any additional preparation for it except the application wherein you're attaching your financial information. Then there is another kind of scholarship called need blind or merit based scholarship. So these merit based scholarships usually entail one extra round in the application process wherein you have to convince them that you deserve it. So that is usually an interview or a group discussion which they take. So for this, you don't have any particular application. You just have to tick yes or no in your main application as to do you want to be considered for the merit-based. So if you tick yes and they think that you are a meritorious, they usually call you for an interview. So these are the two kinds of scholarships which colleges provide. But getting a scholarship from college is 10 times harder than getting an admission because around 2% of applicants every year actually convert merit-based scholarships. Whereas the admissions rate is around 50, even if the admissions rate is around 15-20%, right? Then there are a lot of Indian organizations which actually provide you scholarships. So there is J.N. Tata Foundation, there is KC Mahindra Foundation, there is Narottam Seksharia Foundation, there is Inlax Foundation, there is an R.D. Setna Fellowship, which provides you aid. These are for all countries. And there is Aga Khan as well. So these are for all countries. The range of the fellowships varies. Few provide around 10 to 15 lakh rupees. Few provide full aid, like full tuition aid. Few provide full tuition plus accommodation aid as well. So there are these scholarships. And then there are Indian government fellowships. These specially cater to UK and US. So for UK, you have the Commonwealth fellowships, or you have Commonwealth shared fellowships as well. So few institutes like LSE, Oxford have Commonwealth shared fellowships, wherein 50% aid is given by the Commonwealth Foundation and 50% is given by the college. So by the college which you are getting admission into. So that is one thing. And then there are few where Commonwealth provides the entire aid. Then there is something called the Rhodes Fellowship. So this is also a 100% grant given to masters and PhD students alike. So you can apply to that as well. But yes, these deadlines end before December. So it's important that as soon as the application process starts, you put in your application, because they require you to submit at least a provisional admission letter by November or December. So unless you apply in August, September, you will not have that before December. So this is one thing which you need to focus on. This is for Rhodes especially. Commonwealth, etc., they don't require you to submit an offer letter, but they do require you to tell where all you have applied. Then for US, this is a little tricky because they require a minimum of 3 years work experience. So there are two organizations. One is Rotaract. This is non-government, but they require work experience. They give a full grant. And then there is Fulbright Nehru Fellowship, which is a full aid given in partnership with the US government by Indian government. So this requires minimum of 3 to 5 years work experience based on the course you are getting enrolled in. So if you do have a work ex, I think this is one good option which you can look at.
All right, that's very nice. Lavanya, tell us, are you able to arrange some scholarship and which one was it and how your
Yes.
journey had been?
So
Was it really difficult and challenging or it was sort of easier, comparatively easier?
right. So I got the Quadrangle Research Scholar Fellowship from the University of Chicago, which covers 3/4 of my costs directly. So this is around a $45,000 grant. So which covers my a major chunk of my tuition costs. Then I've also received financial aid from a research working group at University of Chicago, where I will be working as a research assistant to a professor. So this actually covers my entire cost now. Plus, it also gives me a $600 monthly allowance, meaning that I will have to take nothing from my parents when I go there. So for the research scholarship, which I got, which is the second part of it, which I was speaking about, this was very challenging. I will be honest. I applied to 12 fellowships. 3 called me for interviews. I converted 2. So that is a very, very skewed ratio. But yes, because you compete with PhD level students for these positions. So there is obviously an edge those people have because they know a lot more than you do. But I think still, if you can actually show that you're capable, they do take you in. So for me, I'm very, very honored that the mentor of my research group is a Nobel laureate. His name is Dr. Lars Peter Hansen. So he took our interviews personally. It was 5 of us who got shortlisted for the interviews, and he took our interviews. And then he selected 4 of us. So this is a very challenging process. They actually require you to submit a machine learning algorithm which you have written for the data set they give. They require you to explain every single line of the code in the interview. They ask you questions like, why haven't you used this here? So you need to know different models which you're using as well. But the 40,000, $45,000 grant, which the university gave me as part of my actions package, that was fairly simple, to be honest, because they take one interview for admissions and scholarships. The university takes one interview, and that was it. They didn't require me to submit any other additional uh, something which I've written or something. They did ask for a writing sample, but that was part of the admissions process itself. So this was also largely based on the research which I had done before. So I think that matters a lot. Then I've actually also been shortlisted for a couple of Indian scholarships. So the JN Tata Foundation, I've given my final interview, and the Narottam Shiksharia Foundation scholarship as well, I've given my final interview. I'm yet to know the results. I'm positive about Narottam because the interview went very well, but I'm not sure about Tata. It was okay. So yeah, Indian scholarships, if you have a good GPA, a 320 plus GRE score, and if you can write a good SOP, they usually call you to interviews. In the interviews is where they ask you a lot of technical questions. So you need to be very thorough with your undergrad syllabus, because from that is from where they usually ask your questions. More so than general knowledge as well, they ask you from your particular course. It's usually some economics professor taking your interview. So I think that is how my scholarship journey went.
Wow. So, Lavanya, that's been a lot of hard work on your part. I can visualize that you've traveled this journey with lots of effort, lot of labor, and we keep our fingers crossed for all your scholarships. And we wish
Thank
you
you.
all the very best for your future, which should be bright, and
Thank you
I'm
so
sure it
much.
will be good for you. And thank you for giving all those insights to our students. And for students, please stay tuned to the channel. I'm going to write the description and link to Lavanya's enterprise also in the description box. If you need to connect with her for any further guidance, I'm sure she would be more than happy to help. So,
Absolutely.
thank you,
Thank you so
Lavanya.
much for having me. This was a great talk today.